So Stephen Litt is back, and it seems the Watchtower always uses him to solicit donations from the rank and file. Religious organizations worldwide rely on donations to fund their operations. But some employ sophisticated psychological manipulation techniques that go far beyond simple fundraising appeals. And the Watchtower Bible Who Track Society has developed a particularly nuanced approach to extracting money from its members. And in the August JW broadcasting video, it is on full display. The manipulation begins with establishing Jehovah God as the ultimate example of generosity, immediately positioning any resistance to giving as resistance to divine will. The manipulation begins with establishing Jehovah God as the ultimate example of generosity, immediately positioning any resistance to giving as resistance to divine will. And Lit opens with an elaborate discussion of grape varieties, 10,000 different types worldwide, to illustrate what they call Jehovah's voluminous generosity.
Think of all the tasty varieties of food. As just one example, how many varieties of grapes are there? According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, there are about 10,000 different grape varieties worldwide. Jehovah could have given us just 2 varieties, red and green. But why do we have some 10,000 varieties? Because of Jehovah's voluminous generosity.
Now, this technique serves multiple psychological purposes here. First, it creates a sense of awe and overwhelm. The number 10,000 is specifically chosen because it's large enough to seem impressive, but not so large as to be incomprehensible. Let then contrast this with a hypothetical scenario where God could have given us just 2 varieties, red and green. Now, immediately making viewers feel grateful for divine abundance they likely never considered before. And here I must emphasize that the vast majority of those more than 10,000 varieties of grapes are the result of genetic mutations, selective breeding, and viticulture because of human intervention. And this is a classic manipulation tactic known as manufactured gratitude. By pointing out blessings that people take for granted, the organization creates an artificial sense of indebtedness. Members are made to feel that they owe something in return for divine generosity they never requested and were previously unaware they should appreciate. And the phrase Jehovah's voluminous generosity is particularly calculated. Voluminous suggests not just quantity, but overwhelming abundance, while generosity frames God's creative acts not as natural processes, but as deliberate gifts requiring reciprocation. And this transforms the natural world from something that simply exists into something that demands gratitude and, by extension, financial response. And having established God's generosity, Stephen Litt immediately pivots to human responsibility.
But now we ask, how can we imitate Jehovah's generosity in giving physical gifts? It's obvious that Jehovah has put a lot of thought into his gift giving so that his gifts are practical and beneficial. Likewise, we should prayerfully meditate so that our gifts are useful. Not all gifts are practical. One brother gave this example. A puppy might make a fine gift to a young one living in a rural setting, but it's a terrible gift to a Bethelite. If our brother lacks food, clothing, or shelter, we don't just say, "Go in peace, keep warm, and well fed." No, we apply Proverbs 3:27, which says, "Do not withhold good from those to whom you should give it, if it is within your power to help." In addition to helping brothers in need directly, we can indirectly help them by making donations to the worldwide work. The governing body prayerfully strives to use wisely these precious dedicated funds to help our dear brothers who've been afflicted by natural or man made disasters and who urgently need suitable kingdom halls and assistance in many other ways. Speaking of the need for kingdom halls, as just one example, please look at these pictures from the Philippines. Here are 6 before and after photographs. And what do you think was the individual average cost of these 6 new, simplified, but dignified kingdom halls? $21,000. Please think about this. Jehovah's physical gifts, such as the rain, sunshine, and oxygen, are recurring. What's one way to imitate this aspect of Jehovah's giving? Well, 1 Corinthians 16:2 says, "On the first day of every week, each of you should set something aside according to his own means." In harmony with this scriptural principle, many have chosen to set something aside each month by scheduling recurring online donations.
But now we ask, how can we imitate Jehovah's generosity in giving physical gifts? This transition is psychologically significant because it transforms appreciation into obligation. The viewer is no longer simply marveling at creation, but is now expected to match divine giving. The word imitate is crucial here. In Jehovah's Witness theology, imitating God is not optional, it's a fundamental requirement for salvation. By framing donations as imitating God, the organization makes financial giving a matter of spiritual life and death. Members who don't give generously aren't just being stingy, they're failing to be Christ-like and potentially jeopardizing their eternal future. Let then introduces the concept that Jehovah's put a lot of thought into this gift giving so that his gifts are practical and beneficial. This seemingly innocuous statement serves a dual purpose. First, it suggests that random or thoughtless giving is somehow inferior to God's standard. Second, it sets up the organization itself as the most practical and beneficial recipient of donations, since they claim to use funds wisely for kingdom work. The talk then employs a particularly insidious form of emotional manipulation by presenting a hypothetical scenario designed to make members feel guilty about their giving patterns. The example of giving a puppy to a Bethelite versus a child in a rural setting appears innocent but serves multiple manipulative functions. First, it creates a false dichotomy between thoughtful and thoughtless giving, suggesting that members who aren't already giving to the organization are being as inappropriate as someone giving a puppy to someone who can't care for it. This comparison is deliberately extreme to make the point memorable and guilt-inducing. And second, let implies they are appropriate recipients for generosity, subtly channeling members' charitable impulses toward the organization rather than independent charitable acts. And by suggesting that some gifts are terrible, the organization plants seeds of doubt about any charitable giving that doesn't flow through official Watchtower channels. He then employs one of the most common tactics in Watchtower religious manipulation: selective biblical quotation. They reference James 2 verse 16, paraphrasing, if our brother lacks food, clothing, or shelter, we don't just say, go in peace, keep warm and well fed. And then this is followed by Proverbs 3 verse 27, do not withhold good from those to whom you should give it if it is within your power to help. This biblical citation serves multiple manipulative purposes. First, it creates urgency by invoking scenarios of desperate need. Second, it makes refusing to give seem like a violation of biblical principles. Third, it cleverly transitions from helping individuals directly to making donations to the worldwide work, effectively equating organizational donations with helping needy individuals. The manipulation here is particularly sophisticated because it takes biblical principles that genuinely encourage charity and redirects them toward organizational coffers. Members who might hesitate to give money to a religious organization find it much harder to argue against helping hungry, homeless, or disaster-stricken people. And by conflating the two, the organization makes refusing their appeals seem heartless and unbiblical. And perhaps the most emotionally manipulative section of this talk involves the discussion of natural disasters and the need for kingdom halls. Let mentions that the governing body prayerfully strives to use wisely these precious, dedicated funds to help the dear brothers who have been afflicted by natural or man-made disasters. And the statement is carefully crafted to trigger multiple emotional responses. The phrase prayerfully strives suggests humble spiritual decision making rather than corporate financial management. Precious, dedicated funds makes the money sound sacred rather than simply collected. Dear brothers personalizes the recipients, making them seem like beloved family rather than anonymous beneficiaries. And the references to natural or man-made disasters is particularly manipulative because it invokes images of suffering that most people feel compelled to address. And by presenting organizational donations as the primary means of disaster relief for Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide, the leadership makes members feel that refusing to give is tantamount to abandoning disaster victims. He then introduces what appears to be visual evidence of the organization's efficient use of funds. Let then introduces what appears to be visual evidence of organizations' efficient use of funds. Before and after photographs of kingdom walls in the Philippines, with the revelation that each cost an average of 21,000 US dollars. And this information is presented in a way designed to make the cost seem remarkably low and the organization seem remarkably efficient. However, this presentation is manipulative in several ways. First, $21,000 represents a significant sum of money, especially in the Philippines, where the average annual income is much lower than in the developed countries. Second, a simplified but dignified description suggests that members should be satisfied with basic accommodations while potentially contributing much more than $21,000 collectively. And then third, the focus on construction costs ignores other organizational expenses such as legal fees, administrative costs, and the lifestyle maintenance of governing body members. By highlighting one area of seemingly efficient spending, the organization deflects attention from less palatable uses of donated funds. The visual element is particularly powerful because images of completed kingdom walls provide tangible proof of where donations go, even though these construction projects represent only a fraction of the organization's total expenses. And this selective transparency creates an illusion of accountability while actually concealing the majority of financial operations. And the most insidious aspect of the entire appeal comes in the final section, where Led draws parallels between God's recurring gifts like rain, sunshine, and oxygen, and the need for recurring human donations. This comparison is psychologically devastating because it equates financial giving with life-sustaining natural processes. By suggesting that God's gifts are recurring, the organization implies that human generosity should be equally consistent and automatic. The citation of 1 Corinthians 16 verse 2, on the first day of every week, each of you should set something aside according to his own means, provides biblical justification for regular giving. But Led goes further by promoting recurring online donations. The promotion of automated giving is very manipulative here because it removes the opportunity for members to reconsider their giving in light of changing circumstances or growing awareness of organizational problems. Once members set up recurring donations, they often forget about them or feel guilty about canceling them, providing the organization with a steady revenue stream that's psychologically difficult to interrupt. And the phrase, many have chosen, creates social pressure by suggesting that recurring donations are a popular choice among faithful members, And this implicit peer pressure makes members who haven't set up automated giving feel like they're falling behind in their spiritual development. And throughout the talk, the organization employs what psychologists recognize as religious guilt, which is a specific form of emotional manipulation that leverages spiritual beliefs to control behavior. And the Jehovah's Witness donation appeal creates religious guilt by, number one, establishing impossible standards. By comparing human giving to divine creation, the organization sets a standard that no human could possibly match, ensuring perpetual inadequacy. And number two, spiritual blackmail. By framing donations as imitating God, the appeal makes refusing to give seem like rejecting divine instruction. And there's the false, number three, there's the false urgency. By highlighting disasters and construction needs, the organization creates artificial time pressure that prevents careful consideration. And number four, the peer pressure. By suggesting that many have chosen recurring donations, the appeal creates social pressure to conform. And then there's the gratitude manipulation. By pointing out unrecognized blessings, the organization creates artificial indebtedness that must be repaid through giving. Now, while the talk is filled with religious language about prayer, meditation, and biblical principles, the underlying structure reveals a sophisticated corporate fundraising operation. The promotion of recurring online donations is very telling because it mirrors the subscription-based business models of modern corporations. The emphasis on practical and beneficial giving steers members away from independent charitable acts and toward organizational contributions. This centralization of charitable giving serves the corporate interests of the Watchtower organization by eliminating the competition from other worthy causes and ensuring maximum revenue flow. The presentation of construction costs and disaster relief creates an illusion of transparency while actually concealing the vast majority of organizational expenses. Like many corporations, the Watchtower organization highlights its most appealing expenses while downplaying less popular uses of funds. And the manipulation tactics employed in this donation appeal have profound psychological effects on the rank and file members. The constant emphasis of inadequacy, how can we imitate Jehovah's generosity, creates chronic feelings of spiritual insufficiency that can only be addressed through increased giving. And the guilt-inducing language creates anxiety around financial decisions, making members second-guess their spending on personal needs while prioritizing organizational donations. This can lead to genuine financial hardship as members sacrifice basic necessities to meet perceived spiritual obligations. The promotion of recurring donations creates a psychological trap where members feel committed to continue giving even when their circumstances change. And the spiritual significance attached to these donations makes canceling them feel like a betrayal of faith rather than a reasonable financial decision. And this donation manipulation revealed in this talk is part of a broader pattern of organizational control that characterizes high control religious groups. By creating financial dependence through encouraging donations members can barely afford, and financial entanglement through these recurring donations, the organization makes leaving psychologically and practically more difficult. Members who have committed to recurring donations often feel that canceling them would be tantamount to abandoning their faith. And this financial entanglement, combined with the emotional manipulation around spiritual adequacy, creates powerful barriers to leaving the organization, even when members begin to have doubts. The Watchtower organization's approach to soliciting funds is not neutral, and it is not merely encouragement. It is a sophisticated blend of emotional priming, authority framing, only the organization knows how to give wisely. There's also visual persuasion, and scriptural reframing, where biblical verses are used as permanent fundraising slogans. And then there's behavioral entrenchment, recurring donations that remove choice. And when members hear this kind of talk, they are not simply being asked to support a cause they believe in. They are being conditioned to see financial giving as a direct measure of spiritual health, loyalty to God, and obedience to leadership. And that is why former members often describe leaving not only as a spiritual separation, but also as a financial liberation, because that's the moment they stop equating supporting God's work with auto debiting their bank account.